Lesson 8 in Module 2 is on applying the properties of operation to add and subtract rational numbers. So when we talk about properties, we're talking commutative property, associative property, all those type of things, okay? So that hopefully is familiar to you, and hopefully as we talk about things, it'll kind of start to come back. Really, our goal is to make the math easier by using those properties, okay? So here's what I mean. Take a look at this problem here. I know it's fractions. I know at first thing we'd like grown because we don't deal with fractions. So if I was going to do this, negative 2 and 2/5 plus 3 and 1/4 minus 3/5, I'm going to start by rewriting it as an addition problem. So I'm going to say negative 2 and 2/5 plus 3 and 1/4. Instead of saying minus 3/5, I'm going to keep the 3 and 3 and 1/4, change the minus to a plus, and then change 3/5 to a negative 3/5. Okay. Then I'm going to just follow order of operations, and I'm going to add these two together here. Okay, and I'm going to come over here and do it, just so I have more room. But before I can add 2 and 2/5 and 3 and 1/4 together, I got to have a common denominator. So again, I'm going to ask myself, what number does both 5 and 4 go into? Not goes into them, but I need their multiple, their least common multiple, their least common denominator. Well, 5 and 4 both go into 20. So I'm going to say negative 2 and something out of 20 plus 3 and something out of 20. And then I just have my, actually, nope, I'll make this one out of 20 right away too. Let's do that. Negative something out of 20. Okay. So what do I do to 5 to get 20? I'm going to multiply it by 4. So whatever I do to the bottom, I got to do the top. 2 times 4 is going to be 8. What do I do to 4 to get 20? Well, I multiply it by 5. So I'm going to take the 1 and multiply it by 5 and get 5. And what do I do to 5 to get 20? And multiply it by 4. So multiply the 3 by 4 and I get 12. All right, so now they're all common denominators. And we have a couple choices in how we do this. I think what I will do, because of this negative right here, I think I'm going to change it to improper fractions. Okay, not the only way you can do this. This is the way I'm choosing to do it. So, and it's good review how to change mixed numbers into improper fractions. I'm going to ignore the fact that it's negative and just drop it down here. And I'm going to go 20 times 2, which is 40, plus 8, which is 48. So this becomes 48 over 20. Ladies and gentlemen, don't get glossy-eyed right now. If you struggle with fractions, this is the things you've known it's come up for years. It's time that you learn it. So really pay attention. If you're not sure, pause, rewind, and listen to what I say again, and always come see me for help. So plus, changing a mixed number into an improper fraction, denominator times whole number, 20 times 3 is 60, plus 5 is 65 over 20, plus, this is a proper fraction, we're good, negative 12 over 20. Okay, so now I'm going to keep going. I'm just going to add the first two here, right? Our denominator is going to stay at 20. And this negative sign here, do not put negatives both on the top and bottom. Because if you have a negative top and a negative at the bottom, two negatives dividing make a positive, which we'll get to later. You can choose to move it up in the numerator or the denominator. So I'm going to move it up here to the negative 45. And I would just grab a calculator and I would go negative 48 plus, I'm sorry if I said move it up to the 45, it's 48. Negative 48 plus 65. And when you do that, you get 17. Okay, difference of 17. Plus my negative 12 over 20. Again, denominator is going to stay the same. So we have 20 on the bottom. 17 plus a negative 12 is going to be 5. Now I can reduce that, okay? I can divide top and bottom by 5. Can pull out that common factor, right? And 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 20 divided by 5 is 4. We get our answer. Yay, wasn't that fun? And if it's not fun, then you really need to pay attention as I use our properties to actually make it a little bit easier, okay? All right, so I'm going to break this apart. And we're going to do the same problem again, but I'm going to try to use some properties that make it a little bit easier. All right, so starting with I'm going to start here again. Let's do this in purple. And I'm going to say it's a negative 2 and 2/5 plus 3 and 1/4. And instead of saying minus 3/5, again, I'm going to go keep, change. And I'm going to say plus a negative 3/5. All right, before I get to a common denominator, I see that both of these have a denominator of 5. So one of our properties that we can use is I can change the order. And if you change the order, I want you to start thinking for a second there. What property says we can change the order of an addition problem? And I'm really hoping in your head at least you thought, oh, Mrs. Messing, that's the commutative property. Commutative. I squeezed in there. The commutative prop. All right, so if we have our commutative property, I can just add these both together. Here's the thing. Negative plus a negative. Remember, if you go down on the number line, you go down some more. I know my answer is going to be negative, so I just have to add 2 2/5 plus 3/5. Same sign, remember, just add them. And then keep the common sign. Well, 2 5/5 plus 3/5 is 5/5. And that's 2 5/5, which is just 2 plus 1. Sorry, squeeze it in there. So that's just a negative 3. Plus 3 1/4. Well, these are different signs, right? And if we have different signs and we want to subtract, we go take the bigger, ignoring the negative. 3 3/4 minus 3. Well, that just is left with 1 1/4. And remember, which one is bigger? Greater absolute value, farther away from 0 on the number line. Well, that's the positive one. So our answer is just positive 1/4. A little bit easier, isn't it? And it's that idea of using our commutative property and changing the order. It makes things easier. And that's what we're going to want to do with today's lesson. We'll be writing down a lot of stuff, but it's really to help make the problems easier for us. Okay, so one of the things we need to recognize, a mixed number is a sum. A mixed number is a sum, is a addition problem. So it says use the number line model shown below to explain and write the opposite of 2 2/5 as a sum of two rational numbers. Don't get caught up in all that language. I'm not focusing there. I want us to think, okay, if we have 2 2/5, just think of 2 2/5. What does that mean? Well, if I start at 0, I am going to go to the right 1, 2 times. And then I'll go another 2/5. Right? So I'm going to go to the right 2 times, and then I'm going to go another 2/5. So a mixed number really is a sum. It's putting together 2 2/5. Okay, we don't think of it like that, but by doing that, it's going to help us out with some other problems. But what about the opposite of that? What about a negative 2 2/5? What does that mean? So a negative 2 2/5, does that mean I go, well, to the left 2 times and then come back to the right 2/5? No, it doesn't mean that. It means I go to the left 2 times and then I go to the left another 2/5. Okay, so when we have a negative 2 2/5, if I want to break apart that mixed number, and you're going to hear me say that a lot, this is a negative 2 and a negative 2/5, because on a number line, we got to go to negative 2, and then we got to go a negative 2/5 more. Okay, so they're saying all this opposite of a sum and everything, and that's just basically what I mean. If we have 2 plus 2/5, the opposite is going to be a negative 2 plus 2/5. Both of them are negative. Okay, and this part right here is the one that's going to get you. This is the one you have to be careful about. If you break apart a negative mixed number, both the whole number and the fraction are negative.